Hello, fourth grade, and welcome to our first language arts video for the year. I'm going to show you a few important things that you need to know. I'm going to show you how to access your books online so that you can listen to your stories. I'm going to show you where to find your workbooks in case you misplace something or you need a fresh copy. And I'm going to show you where to find these notes so that you can go back to them if you need them. Now, this video is going to cover everything for language arts that you need for this week. So make sure you come back to the video as you work through the assignments. For your assignments this week, you're going to be working out of what I call your practice book, which is basically like your homework book, and you're going to do some pages of grammar practice. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload the entire packet for you on Monday, and you're going to work on it throughout the week. So what you're going to do is you're going to see it in there listed on Monday, and it's going to be due on Friday. So what you're going to do when you open the assignments, on Monday, you're going to work on the Monday pages, and then you're going to close it. It will save itself. You don't need to do anything at all there. On Tuesday, you're going to go in there and do the Tuesday pages and then close it all the way until you get to Friday. Now, Friday, once you finish all of your pages, you're going to press the submit button, and that's when it'll send it back to me. So I'm going to pop into your file and I'm going to check and see that you're doing your work daily and on time, because you don't want to end up with a lot of work at the end of the week. If I notice that people are leaving their work until the very, very end of the week to do it, I will split those pages up and you will have to turn in each page on the day that it's due. Now, a couple of things that you need to know. Our shared folder, which is going to be in every single email that I send, is right here. So it's going to be called our second, third, and fourth grade documents for distance learning. Now, a couple of things that you are going to need in here. You're going to have our weekly folder. So right now we're in week 2. Next week, this one will be gone, and I'll put it in a separate thing that says previous folders. And then it'll say week 3 out here, and it'll have inside of it any documents that you need, like the notes that we're going to be using. So here's the link to our notes that we're going to be working out of for this week. And you're going to see that your notes are labeled 4th grade ELA, Unit 1, Week 1. Now, another important thing that you need to see is how to log in to see your textbooks. So if you want to listen to your story or go back and reread it on your own and you don't have the book with you, or you're at someone's house and you want to listen to your story, you're going to use the login information that I've already emailed to your parents. Now you can have it saved so that you don't have to retype it. And then you're going to press login. Now, as soon as you get here, you're going to have access to a lot of student books for all the different grade levels. For you to get down to your language arts, you're going to go down to the Wonders book. So you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you're going to select Wonders Grade 4. You're going to press launch. And that's going to take you to this page. So this is going to be your student page. The easiest way to get to your books is by pressing this button right here, the resources button. As soon as you press on that, you're going to see the textbooks that you have. So your reading and writing workshop, this is your small textbook, and your literature anthology, this is your big textbook. Now, you could also download your practice book here if you needed to, but it's also in the shared folder. So I'm going to open up this first book. It's going to open in a new tab. And you can click through using this arrow on the right side over here until you get to our table of contents where it says Unit 1. So right here, we're in Unit 1. We're going to go to Week 1. So I'm just going to click on that, and it's going to take me to the correct pages. It's going to take a minute to load the other page. There we go. And then I'm going to go back into this tab, and I'm going to open my literature anthology book as well, so that I have access to both of my stories and all of the information that I need. Let's reload this real quick. Okay, so here we go. We flipped through the pages until we got to our Unit 1 page, and you can see over here in small letters, is Week 1, Week 2, Week 3. So we're going to go to our first story, The Princess and the Pizza. You're going to click on that and it's going to open up your story. These little speaker buttons will read for you while you go through. This little side arrow, if you hover over it, it says next page, and that's going to take you through the story. So let's start with our big book story, which is this one out of our literature anthology book. This is The Princess and the Pizza.
Genre, fairy tale. The Princess and the Pizza by Mary Jane and Herm Auk. Princess Paulina needed a job. Her father had given up his throne to become a wood carver and moved them to a humble shack in a neighboring kingdom. Since the king was still learning, his carvings didn't sell, and Paulina's garden barely kept enough on the table. Paulina missed princessing. She missed walking the peacock in the royal garden, surveying the kingdom from the castle tower, and doing the princess wave in royal processions. Paulina tried walking a stray chicken around her shack, but it only pecked at her bare toes. Surveying the kingdom from the shack's leaky roof made even more holes. She tried princess waving to the townspeople from her father's cart, but nobody bothered to wave back. They just thought she was swatting at flies. One day, a page rode past the shack, announcing that Queen Zelda of Blom was seeking a true princess to become the bride of her son, Prince Drupert. "This is my chance to get back to princessing," Paulina cried. She rummaged through her trunk of ex-princess stuff, brushed the wood shavings from her best ball gown, and blew away the bits of sawdust that clung to her diamond tiara. Then she tucked a piece of garlic into her bodice for good luck, snipped some fragrant herbs to cover up the garlic smell, and headed for the castle. Paulina didn't expect much competition. There wasn't another princess for hundreds of miles. But when she got to Blom Castle, Paulina found she was only one of 12 princesses hoping to become the royal bride. Stop and check. Make predictions. How does Paulina feel about her chances of winning the competition? Use text clues to make a prediction.
So when you come to these questions, you can stop and think about the story that you're reading. So when we're making a prediction, what we're doing is we're guessing what we think is going to happen next based on what we read in the story so far. So we're going to use text clues or text evidence, which is basically what clues the author gave us in the writing and in the pictures to help us decide on our answer. Now we can see that in the last paragraph, it says Paulina didn't expect much competition. So she was feeling pretty confident about her chances at becoming the bride of the prince. And when she got there, we see that she was one of 12 girls. So it wasn't just her on her own. She realized there are other people there as well.
When she looked into her assigned room, Paulina saw her bed piled with 16 mattresses. Oh, for Pete's sake, the old Princess and the Pea trick. That's so Once Upon a Time. Naturally, Paulina didn't sleep all night because she felt the lumpy pea through all of the mattresses. When the 12 princesses gathered in the throne room the next morning, the 7 who looked bright-eyed were sent home. Now, only Paulina and 4 other sleepy princesses remained. First, they were made to write essays entitled, "Why I Want to Have the Gracious and Exquisitely Beautiful Queen Zelda for My Mother-in-Law." Prince Drupert and Queen Zelda finally appeared on the balcony. Queen Zelda did all the talking. "Congratulations, ladies. You have written some lovely essays which I will keep in my scrapbook, and you have all passed the mattress test. But to make absolutely sure you are of royal blood, there is a second test. Only a true princess can wear these glass slippers." "For Pete's sake, you never heard of sneakers?" Paulina asked. Queen Zelda gave Paulina a sharp look. "Nobody said you had to hike in them. Just try them on." After the royal page made his way around the room with the slippers, 2 big-footed princesses were sent home. Now only Paulina and 2 others remained. One was followed around by 7 strange little men, and the other had such a long braid dragging behind her, Paulina kept tripping over it. "For Pete's sake, you never heard of scissors?" Paulina cried. Queen Zelda glared at Paulina. You all have passed the second princess test. Your final task is to cook a feast that proves you worthy of being my dear Drupert's wife. This set up a wail among the princesses, especially Paulina. "For Pete's sake, you have no royal chef?" "Silence," said the queen. "The table holds the makings for 3 fine feasts. Choose well, for the winner will become my dear Drupert's bride." As Paulina started for the table, the long-haired princess tripped her, then loaded up with food. By the time Paulina got there, the 7 strange little men had run off with everything but some flour, yeast, water, 3 overripe tomatoes, and a hunk of stale cheese. "Hey, that's not fair! Queen Zelda, will you help me?" "No," said the queen, "because you have a big mouth." A servant escorted Paulina to her room and locked the door. "Hey, how can I cook without a bowl or spoons or pots?" There was no reply. Paulina tried to make bread, kneading the flour, water, and yeast together, but it only stuck to the tray in a flattened mess. She squished the tomatoes over the dough to brighten it up. It looked awful. She sprinkled cheese gratings over the top. It was still a mess, and Paulina was exhausted. "For Pete's sake, where's your fairy godmother when you need her? I'm going to take a nap." She reached under the pile of mattresses, pulled out the offending pea, and climbed into bed. She hadn't been sleeping long when there was a knock at the door. "Only 20 minutes left," called Queen Zelda. "I don't smell anything cooking." "I'm not cooking," said Paulina. "I'm napping. Then I'm going home." "You're not going anywhere," said the queen. "The losers will be beheaded." Paulina sat bolt upright. "Beheaded? You didn't tell us that." "I forgot," said the queen. "Can't I have a second chance? How about I try to spin straw into gold, or maybe I could guess a weird little man's name?" "No second chances," declared the queen. "But that's not fair," Paulina cried. "Who needs to be fair? I'm the queen." Paulina leaped out of bed and ran to the window, but it was an unbelievably long drop to the ground. The meal was her only hope. She rushed the tray over to the fireplace, stirred the few remaining hot coals, then crushed her garlic and sprinkled it over the mess for good luck. Finally, Paulina tossed on the herbs to cover up the garlic smell. Stop and check. Confirm or revise predictions. Why does Paulina start thinking about an escape? Use the text and illustrations to confirm or revise your earlier prediction.
Now, earlier, when we were reading about how Paulina felt very confident about her chances of becoming a princess, we thought that maybe she had a really good chance and she was going to get to marry the prince because there weren't that many other princesses there. But now we need to revise or change or improve our prediction. And we want to think about why she starts thinking about escaping. Now, what does the queen tell her on the previous page? If you remember, the queen told her that whoever, one of them will be chosen to be princess, and the other 3 that were left over would be beheaded. So Paulina is now trying to find an escape because she realized she doesn't have very many ingredients, she doesn't know what to cook, and she wants to try and get home.
Paulina paced back and forth, planning her escape. Perhaps she could make a deal with the long-haired princess to climb down her braid. She didn't notice that the goopy dough had browned into a crust. The tomatoes were bubbling, the hard bits of cheese had melted, and the fragrance of garlic and herbs filled the room. A page opened the door. "Time's up." Paulina took a deep breath and carried her tray into the great dining room. The other princesses had made lovely feasts, especially the one who had the 7 strange little men to help her. Prince Drupert went right to Paulina's tray. "It's not pretty, but it smells scrumptious." He helped himself to an unusually generous piece. "What do you call this dish?" Paulina shrugged. "I don't know." "It can't be an official entry in the contest if it doesn't have a name," said the Queen. "Oh, for Pete's sake," Paulina muttered. "What's that?" snapped the Queen. "Pete's what?" Remembering the beheading threat, Paulina frantically tried to think of a name. "It's Pete's, Pizza?" The Queen took a big bite. "Odd name, but it's tasty. The winner is Paulina's Pizza." "You mean I won't be beheaded?" "I was only kidding about the beheading," said the Queen. "Then I was only kidding about wanting to marry Prince Drupert. Who needs him? I have other plans." "Will you leave your recipe?" asked the Queen. "No way," said Paulina. "It's just become a family secret." She headed for the door. "I liked you best," whined the Queen, following close behind. "Oh, for Pete's sake," muttered Paulina as she stomped across the drawbridge. Princess Paulina's Pizza Palace opened a few weeks later. It featured unusual carved furniture and 50 kinds of pizza. Every Thursday on the royal chef's night off, Queen Zelda and Prince Drupert came to Paulina's for popcorn pineapple pizza. They often stayed to play cards with Paulina's father. From then on, whenever Paulina drove her pizza delivery cart through town doing the princess wave, everybody waved back and ran after her, asking about the day's specials. Life was good. Paulina was grateful not to have Queen Zelda for a mother-in-law, but she still worried about one little thing. She worried about getting Queen Zelda as her stepmother.
Okay, so we've reached the end of our first story. We're going to go ahead and jump into our second story. And these are stories you're going to be reading throughout the week. So make sure you are reading them and listening carefully as you go through them. Now, this is our reading and writing workshop, which is going to be our small textbook. The first set of pages, you're going to find the vocabulary words for this week. Now, when you're going through the vocabulary words, you're going to notice that they are highlighted in yellow. So whenever you see them in your story, you're going to see them like this with a yellow background. So on this page, they're going to give you the words for your vocabulary for the week, an example sentence, and usually an example question. So your words for this week are brainstorm, flattened, frantically, gracious, muttered, official, original, and stale. Now, this book also has a story that you're going to go through.
Genre: fairy tale. The Dragon Problem. Once upon a time, long before computers, baseball, or pizza, there lived a young man named Liang. During the day, Liang helped his father build furniture. At night, he made unique, original toys for the children in the village. He made birds with flapping wings. He carved dragons with rippling, moving scales, sharp claws, and red eyes. Every child in the village had one of Liang's dragons. Liang knew a lot about dragons because one lived nearby on a mountain. A few times a year, the dragon would swoop down on the village. He ate water buffalo, pigs, and any people unlucky enough to be around. The emperor had done nothing to get rid of the dragon, even though his summer palace was near Liang's village. One day in May, the emperor and his family arrived to take up residence at his summer palace. As the procession passed through the village, the gracious Princess Peng smiled kindly at Liang. He fell instantly in love. At dinner that night, Liang told his father that he wanted to marry Princess Peng. His father almost choked on the stale, hard rice ball he was eating. "You're joking," his father said when he finally could speak. "I'm serious," insisted Liang. His father began laughing so hard that the old chair he was sitting on broke. He lay on top of the flattened chair, still laughing. "I'll show him," Liang muttered angrily as he stomped out of the room. The next morning, the emperor's messenger made an official announcement. "His most noble emperor proclaims that whoever gets rid of the dragon will marry his daughter, Princess Peng." When he heard the announcement, Liang raced to the palace to be the first to sign up. Then he looked for his friend Li to help him brainstorm ideas for getting rid of the dragon. Unfortunately, Li was away. Liang sat on a bench, frowning. Nearby, children were playing with the toy dragons he had made them. "Liang, what's wrong?" the children asked. "I have to get rid of the dragon on the mountain," he told them. "I have an idea," said little Ling Ling. "Why don't you carve a giant dragon and leave it by the cave? It will alarm the real dragon and scare him into flying away." Liang stared at her. "Perfect," he shouted and rushed home. He worked frantically for days, making a huge, scary dragon's head. The night he finished, he loaded it onto a cart and went up the mountain. When he got near the cave, Liang put the wooden head on top of a big rock. From the front, it looked like the rest of the dragon's body was behind the rock. Liang hid in the bushes and gave a loud roar. "What's that noise?" growled the dragon, rushing out of his cave. Then he saw the massive dragon head glaring at him. "Go away or I'll eat you up," he commanded. The huge dragon continued to glare at him. "He must be very strong. He's not afraid of me," thought the dragon, who, like all bullies, was a coward. He decided that now was a good time to take a long trip. "Actually, I'm leaving now. Please make yourself at home in my cave," the dragon called out as he flew away. A year later, Liang and Princess Peng were married. They opened a toy shop together and lived happily ever after.
Okay, so now we've gone through our second story, and we're going to go ahead and talk about our comprehension strategy and skill. We're going to talk about the genre that we're reading, which is the type of story. And we're also going to talk about our vocabulary strategy that helps us understand different words and ways for us to use different clues and tools that we know to figure out the meaning of words that we're not familiar with.
Make predictions. When you read the story, The Dragon Problem, you can use text clues, illustrations, and your own experience to predict what will happen next. Find text evidence.
So when we're talking about text evidence, we want to first break apart or decompose those words into their meaning so we can understand what they're talking about. Now, the text is the story. It's the words and the pictures that the author gave us or provided us. And evidence is clues. So you're asked a question and you want to use your text evidence or the clues that the author gave you to find the answer instead of just trying to make up an answer in your own head. You're going to pull the answer from the writing and from the pictures that the author gave you.
As I read, I see that Liang wants to marry Princess Peng. Then the emperor announces that anyone who gets rid of the dragon will marry his daughter. My prediction that Liang will try to get rid of the dragon was correct. "I'll show him," Liang muttered angrily as he stomped out of the room. The next morning, the emperor's messenger made an official announcement. His most noble emperor proclaims that whoever gets rid of the dragon will marry his daughter, Princess Peng. When he heard the announcement, Liang raced to the palace to be the first to sign up. Then he looked for his friend Li to help him brainstorm ideas for getting rid of the dragon. Unfortunately, Li was away. Liang sat on a bench, frowning. Nearby, children were playing with the toy dragons he had made them. "Liang, what's wrong?" the children asked. "I read that Liang is going to the palace to sign up to get rid of the dragon." My prediction was correct. Sequence. Sequence is the order in which the story events take place. Putting a story's events in sequence will help you to understand the setting, the characters, and the plot. Find text evidence. When I reread pages 23 and 24 of The Dragon Problem, I see that Liang wants to marry Princess Peng. The next day, the emperor's messenger announces that anyone who gets rid of the dragon will marry the princess. Graphic organizer. Character, Liang. Setting, village in ancient China. Beginning. Liang sees Princess Peng and falls in love. The next day, the emperor says anyone who gets rid of the dragon will marry the princess. Caption. Putting story events in order will help you summarize the plot.
So as we go through the story and we're looking at the sequence of events, we're looking at the order that things are happening. Sequence means you're putting things in order. So what's happening in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of the story. Now, when we're talking about the plot of a story, we're talking about the overall idea of what's happening when. So we're looking at the main parts and we're telling the story with just the important pieces. So usually when we're talking about plot, we're talking about 5 different parts. The somebody, which is a character, what they wanted, what happened, what got in the way, and what was the result. So usually we summarize those by saying somebody wanted, but, so, then. So somebody is your character. Wanted is what did they want out of this in the story, but what was the problem that happened? So what kind of solution did the character come up with it? Then how did the story end? So when we're talking about plot, we're talking about those 5 parts. Somebody wanted, but, so, then. And you can also use a graphic organizer like the one over here in the picture to organize your ideas so you know who you're talking about, where the story is happening, and the events that happened in the story. So next we're going to talk about the type of story that we're reading or the genre that we're reading, and we're going to talk about fairy tales and what makes them unique.
Fairy tale. The Dragon Problem is a fairy tale. Fairy tales have a main character who must complete a difficult task or journey. Usually contain imaginary creatures, include illustrations, and have a happy ending. Find text evidence. The Dragon Problem is a fairy tale. The story's main character must complete a difficult task. The story includes an imaginary creature, a dragon. Use illustrations. Fairy tales are usually illustrated. Illustrations give visual clues about the characters, settings, and events in the story.
So when we're talking about fairy tales, we're talking about made-up stories that usually come with a happy ending, but they also have parts or elements in them that are not real. So there's usually some kind of journey or some kind of quest that the main character has to go on. There's usually some kind of imaginary creature. So flying dragons, fairies, things like that. And it has a happy ending at the end. Now we're going to take a look at our vocabulary strategy for this week, and that's about synonyms. So we use synonyms to help us figure out the meaning of words that we don't know.
Synonyms. As you read the dragon problem, you may come across a word that you don't know. Look at the surrounding words and sentences for clues. Sometimes the author uses a synonym, a word that means almost the same thing as the unfamiliar word. Find text evidence. When I read the third sentence on page 23 in the dragon problem, the word original helps me to figure out what the word unique means. At night, he made unique, original toys for the children in the village.
Okay, and that takes us to the end of our lesson in the book. And we're going to go back to our notes and go over the vocabulary words and their meanings. We're also going to go over your spelling words for the week and your grammar. So make sure you're revisiting this video whenever you need to remember what we were talking about, or if you need help on certain pages as you get to those throughout the week. Now, your vocabulary list for this week includes the words gracious, stale, flattened, frantically, muttered, official, brainstorm, and original. So the way I have your your vocabulary set up is the first line is going to be the meaning and definition of your word. The second line is an example sentence, and the third line is how to use the word in question form. So your first word here is the word gracious. So gracious means showing kindness and courtesy. So when you're being gracious, you're treating someone very kindly and politely. My gracious neighbor helped us carry the groceries inside. What are some gracious words? So gracious are kind, respectful words. So when you're being gracious, you're saying please and may I. You're remembering to say thank you. Your second word is a word stale. Something that is stale is not fresh. So the stale bread was left on the counter. So if you think about bread or even tortilla chips, something, or crackers, something that's been sitting out where it tastes kind of old, right? If it's chips or crackers, they're not really crunchy anymore the way they were when they were fresh. An example question is, what might cause food to become stale? So usually if you leave something out and uncovered, right? If you don't close the bag on the crackers or the chips, or you leave something out without putting it back into its proper container, it can become stale. A flattened object has been made flatter or more level or smooth. So flattened comes from the word flat. So something that is flat, like a piece of paper, right, is squished down and spread out and thin. So when something is flattened, you've made it more flat, or you've kind of smoothed it out. The food stuck to the tray in a flattened mess. So when we're talking about the princess and the pizza, right? After she put together the dough and the sauce and she put the cheese on top, everything kind of melted down and flattened into one large, flat, round shape. What objects easily become flattened? So think about like Play-Doh, right? You can take Play-Doh and you can squish it down and make it flat. Your next word is the word frantically. To behave frantically is to act wildly due to worry or fear. So what does that mean? When you are frantic, you are panicking, you are worried, you're running around back and forth. So Paulina frantically tried to think of a name. So when the queen asked her to come up with a name for her dish, she got really worried. She started kind of walking back and forth, thinking really hard until she came up with the name. An example question is, when have you seen someone run around frantically? So think if someone's being chased, right? If you're playing tag and the person who's is running behind you and they're getting really close, you're running frantically, right? You're running as fast as you can. Maybe you're zigzagging back and forth to try and get away from them so you don't get caught. Your next word is the word muttered. When something is muttered, it's spoken in a low voice. So when you're saying something and someone has to ask you to speak up or to repeat yourself, usually it's because you muttered and you weren't speaking clearly. My teacher did not understand me when I muttered the answer. So instead of saying, for example, my name is Anna. I muttered. I could say, my name is Ms. Zaina, and that's me speaking clearly. So the opposite of speaking clearly is muttering. Why might things that are muttered be difficult to understand? Well, if someone is speaking in a really low voice and they're not saying their words clearly and properly, it makes it difficult to understand. Your next word is the word official. An official document is properly authorized. So that means that is the name that was given to it and people agree on it. It can't be an official entry into the contest if it doesn't have a name. So when they were talking about the name of Paulina's dish, they said it needs a name. You need to name it. You need to call it something that everybody will call it to give it an official name. What are some official documents? So official pieces of paper that are important that everyone has. You can have like your birth certificate is an official piece of paper. Your next word is the word brainstorm. So to brainstorm is to solve a problem by having group members all contribute ideas freely. What does that mean? That means you are working with a group and everyone is sharing their ideas about how to solve a problem. So any ideas you come up with, as many of them as you come up with, you list all of them out and you are brainstorming or you are thinking together as a group to come up with a solution. When might it be helpful to brainstorm with others? So if you're facing a problem in your community, maybe there's a lot of litter on the floor, you're going to brainstorm with your neighbors about how to keep the neighborhood clean, how to clean up the mess that's already there, how to get people together so that it doesn't take as long when everyone works as a team. And your last word is the word original. An original item is new or it's the first of its kind. So if you make something on your own, that is an original item, right? It's the first one. Nobody's got one like it. So when we say he performed an original skit, a skit is like a play. That means he made up the play and he performed the play. So it's something that he made up. It's not a story that's already there. It's a new one that he created or invented. What have you heard or seen that is an original item? So if your grandma knits you a nice warm sweater, that's an original item because nobody's got one like it. You didn't buy it at the store. She made it by hand and it's one where there isn't another one that's the same. Now let's go ahead and talk about your spelling. So each week you are going to have 25 spelling words, 4th grade. 20 of them will be new words. 3 of them will be review words from the week before, and 2 of them will be challenge words. Now your spelling words each week are going to have a theme. They're all going to wrap around the same idea. So this week, your spelling words are going to focus on short vowel sounds. So all of your words, except for those last couple words, are going to be short vowel words. Now, when you go to write your spelling words 3 times each in your notebook, you have to make sure you follow a couple specific rules. You need to remember to skip lines. You need to leave a 2-finger space between your words, and you need to use your very best handwriting. If your work is messy, I'm going to send it back to you and ask you to redo it. So your words for this week are the word flat, cash, band, bell, left, shelf, wealth, grim, mill, hint, plot, dock, blot, odd, sum, plum, bluff, crunch, build, gym, snack, step, pond, heavy, and shovel. Now, when you go to write your words 3 times each, I gave you an example of what your paper should look like. So on the top right-hand corner, I would like for you to write down your full name and date. The title is going to be spelling words, and here I put 1.1. Instead of writing Unit 1, Lesson 1, which will take up a lot more space, this first one is Unit 1, Lesson 1. So 1.1, when we get to Lesson 2, it'll be 1.2. Now, when you're writing your spelling words, you're double spacing. You're leaving a blank line in between each one. You're leaving a 2-finger space at least in between your words so that your words are not squished together. And you're writing your letters neatly and carefully so that it's easy to read. So you can see these first 2 lines are done well. The letters are the right size. They're written neatly. They're spaced apart. There's an empty line in between them. But the 3rd line you can see is not written in a way that's that you're supposed to do your spelling words. So you can see that the letters are squished together. It's hard to read. There's no spacing in between the words. So if your work looks anything like this, it's going to get sent back for you to redo it neatly so that it looks more like this. So your best bet is to do it carefully the first time so you don't have to do it twice. Okay, now we are going to go over your grammar notes in just a moment. Now, as we get into our grammar notes for this week, we're going to be talking about sentences and a couple different kinds of sentences. Now, we know a sentence is a group of words that shows a complete thought. Every sentence that you're going to see is going to begin with a capital letter and end with some kind of punctuation mark. A sentence shows a complete thought. Remember that because that's very important. Now, we're going to talk about 4 different kinds of sentences. The first one is called a statement. A statement is a sentence that tells something. They went to the park yesterday. I have a new puppy. My sweater is blue. They're just telling you something. And those kinds of sentences end with a period. The second kind of sentence we're going to talk about is called a question. We know what questions are. A question is a sentence that asks something, and those end in a question mark. You can ask any kind of question like, what should we eat for dinner? Did you remember to put your homework in your backpack? Do you know where I left my socks? All of these are different kinds of questions that you can ask. Now, the third kind of sentence we're going to talk about is a command. A command tells someone to do something. So a command will end with either a period or an exclamation mark. It can be either one depending on what's being said. So in order for it to be command, you have to be telling someone to do something. Please put the book back on the shelf. Finish your homework before you go outside to play. Put away your shoes. You're giving a command. You're giving someone an order. You're telling them to do something. That's when it ends with a period. You can also have it end with an exclamation mark. And remember, anytime we use an exclamation mark, it's when we're showing strong feelings. So if someone shouts to someone else, don't touch that, it's hot. That's going to end with an exclamation mark because you're giving a command, but you can also tell there's a lot of feeling in it. Now, an exclamation is a sentence that shows surprise or excitement or a really strong feeling. An exclamation is always going to end with an exclamation mark, and that looks like this right here. Now, when you are exclaiming something, that means you're shouting it usually, right? You're saying it with a lot of strong feeling. There's excitement and emotion in your voice. So you can say, hooray, we're going swimming. So you're showing a strong feeling, a happy feeling, but you can also use that to show other feelings as well. Now, those are the 4 kinds of sentences we're going to talk about, but we're also going to cover sentence fragments. Remember, the word fragment means a piece of something. So a sentence fragment is a piece of a sentence. It's not the whole sentence. So a sentence fragment is a group of words that does not show a complete thought. It's only giving you part of the idea. It's not giving you the whole thing. So sentence fragments are hard to follow. You don't know what they're talking about. So one example of a sentence fragment is went to the park. Well, who went to the park? Why did they go to the park? It doesn't give us the whole thought. Or I can say the boy ate the what? Ate the cookie, ate the ice cream, ate the pizza. We don't know because it is incomplete. It is not complete. It is a sentence fragment. So that's it for your language arts notes and information for this week. Remember, when you sign in to your Wonders book. You are going to log in. You're going to go all the way down to pick your book. Remember, the Wonders books are going to be towards the bottom. You're going to press launch to start your book. And the easiest way to find your books is to go to resources. Remember that our shared drive will have any of the notes that you need and any of the workbooks. There's also the slides and directions over here on how to scan and upload your 3 times each for your spelling words. Once you've done that, please make sure the scans are really clear and easy to read, that you have good lighting on in the room so that it's not really dark. Otherwise, I hope you guys have an amazing day, 4th grade. And if you have any questions, definitely let me know. Take care. Bye-bye.